This is my modular system that I will be using this year to do a patch a week for my and your education and enjoyment. This is the base unit here, 9U, 90 HP, so 270 HP in this case total. And then I also have this semi-modular sitting up top. This is a Arturia Mini Brute 2. I have this semi-modular. This is a piece of kit. This is a Coma Field Kit FX. And then I have my control skiff here. And the O control, which I'm sure if you're interested in modular, you're at least passingly familiar with, but we'll go over that in some detail later. Okay, so plan here is to go module by module based on Benn Jordan's video, which I guess I can link in the description for reference. It's sort of inspired by this, his video, to just explain what I've got here, what I'm working with, what I'm happier or less happy with. I'm actually pretty happy with everything in this case right now, but we'll go over that in a little bit of detail. And this way you'll know what I'm working with if you want to follow along for this patch a week challenge that I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to start at the bottom here. This first module that you see on the bottom left, this is the After Later Benjolin V2. This is a licensed version of Rob Hordike's Benjolin. This is arguably, it's the most important, it's probably the second most important module in this rig. And it's funny because it's actually one of the newest, it's probably the newest newest key piece, and it's actually one of the newest pieces overall. I've only had it a little over a year, but it's really become integral to what I want to do in modular and what I do in modular. I use this in probably at least half of my patches, one way or another, maybe even 3/4. Wouldn't trade it for the world. Might actually need to get an expander, another expander for it. This right here is the expander that lets it spit out a bunch of gates. What this is, I guess I should say that, the Benjolin, if you're not familiar, is a full synth voice. 2 oscillators, a filter, and this Wrangler circuit in the middle, which is really the key to the whole thing. The Wrangler circuit is a chaotic voltage generator, semi-random, random voltage generator. What it does is this oscillator here runs. This oscillator here serves as a clock to sample a value off this oscillator that then gets fed into the Wrangler, and then it's a shift register. And then it does some operations, I don't know, some special magic, and spits out a series of gates spits out a series of voltages, which you can then use to control various things within the system. And then what it is it's a crazy feedback system. It's all patched to itself. Yeah, we'll go into more detail on it probably in some of the patches, but it sounds like this. Let's see here. Open the filter up. Yeah, that's one of the things it sounds like. It also sounds like this. Okay. Anyway, I could play with this thing all day. You literally could not pry it from my cold dead hands. It is one of my favorite modules. Okay, next we have the infamous Disting Mark IV. This is an all-in-one module. Does a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of every damn thing you can imagine. I use it in 60% of my patches, maybe 50 to 60% of my patches. I probably would trade it if there was something really sweet that it could fit in the same space for the same value. Maybe a dedicated effect or something. I would probably regret that, but I probably would trade it, in part because I actually have another disc thing we'll get to later. It is an excellent module, though. I just don't, since I have the other one, the bigger brother of it, I just don't use it as much. And a lot of times it gets dedicated to some pretty low-level stuff. I've used it as a dedicated tuner before, dedicated LFO, chaos modulator, etc. when I didn't have those things. But anyway, next we have a switch. This is the WMD select switch. I think it's a pretty fancy one. I actually have not played with it too much. I just got it. It's the very last module I've added. I've used it in a couple of patches. I mean, it's a switch. It does what switches do. I have just covered this other switch too. I got a more basic Doepfer sequential switch on the other side here. I wouldn't trade either one of them. As a matter of fact, I might try and fit another one in the case. Maybe I would. That's what I put in this disc tank spot. But the switches are not flashy utilities, but they come in very handy. They're just amazing. Don't need to explain what they do. We'll go into some of that during the patching. Here in the middle here, this is the Morphagene. This was the first module that I actually bought. I use it in, I don't know, 70... I probably use it in, at this point, at one point I used it in 100% of my patches. At this point I probably use it in something like 65% of my patches. It really depends on what I'm trying to do. Yeah, this is amazing. I would not trade it. As a matter of fact, it's the only module I've seriously considered buying a second one of. It is just incredible. It does things. It's granular. It's tape machine.
Are you ready? All
right. Anyway, yeah, don't want to get too lost here, but yeah, that is definitely a module you can get lost in. Make noise vibes continue here. Next module here is the Q-Pass. This is a dual, or it's like a 4-core stereo, very fancy stereo filter is what it is. And it is a perfect companion to this Morphagene. Some very nice filter tones. I use this in I use this in almost every patch. I would not trade it. Continuing down the road here. The Make Noise road, that is. We have the Make Noise mimeophone, Make Noise Sound Hack mimeophone. This is essentially a very fancy delay. And I would not trade it for the world either. Those of you who are savvy to these things might be thinking right now, wow, you actually have... most of a Make Noise tape and music, or what is it, the tape and music sound system? Yeah. Tape and micro sound system. Right? Make Noise, tape, and microsound system. Anyway, yes, I do have most of one. I have the, that was not intentional. It's just where I ended up. Like I said, this is the first module I bought. I later bought the mimeophone to complement it. I had a different filter on it for a while that I got rid of. I might talk about that at some point in the future. But yeah, this is right here about 2/3 of it. Then the rest of it would be a Wogglebug and a Maths and an whatever that output module, Rosie, that they have on it. It doesn't really matter. It's an output module. I do not have a Maths, but I do have a function. Ta-da! There it is. That's half of a Maths right there. This is basically one channel of Maths. And instead of pairing it with the other channel of Maths and the mixer that it comes with, I have built my own little custom Maths, if you will, out of a function and a Pittsburgh Mod Tools, Lifeforms Mod Tools. This is now discontinued, I think, sort of all-in-one, like, utility Swiss Army knife, if you will, of Euro rack utility. So you have up top rather, you have this, it's a function generator. So you can either trigger it in the input here, or let it do free run as an LFO. It'd be a sustain envelope or just a pinged envelope, like trigger envelope. You can alter the, you can inject CV into it and get, make a change in real time or whatever. And you can also use it as a slew limiter. So it's just a basic full-featured, relatively bare bones, but at the same time full-featured, meaning it does everything a function generator does. Function generator, and it does go up to audio range. I have used it at audio. I use this in, God, I would say close to 100% of the patches. Got to be like 95% of the patches I use at least one function on this. I probably would not trade it. I might be tempted to put something else, a more full-featured function generator possibly in its place, but I didn't get into it. But this also has some logic here. It's got an OR and a mix, similar again, so that's kind of similar to what you get out of maths. I can plug this into these with this and get the function generator, like sums of them and whatnot. It's got a sample and hold section built in, and then it has a free-running LFO with square and sine outputs as well, with just the switch. And yeah, and in the early days, I don't do it so much any often, but in the early days I actually used to use this as my clock quite a bit. This is also one of the first modules I bought, and it is a killer module. Like I said, I might be tempted to trade it for a more full function, more full featured rather function generator, but I have a feeling I would end up missing some of the things on there. Realistically, at some point I probably will. Today I probably wouldn't. Tomorrow, who knows? On the side here we have a function. Like I said, this is half a maths. It's just a function generator. It's basically a more full-featured version of this section of this, because it's got, like, it has plus and minus outputs, and it's got triggers for the end of rise and end of channel or end of cycle, and you can alter just the rise or just the fall or both, depending on this. And here it's like both or nothing. Anyway, yes, more full-featured. You can cycle this to get an LFO out of it, yada yada. Yep, basic function generator. Got that in a trade. Would I trade it off? Only for, definitely not unless it was for another function generator. Like if someone wanted to try the function and handed me your analog function generator in its place, I would definitely do a one-to-one swap on that. Or if they had the after later audio, whatever, I can't remember what their tilt is, what I think they call their function generator. Yeah, I would probably swap it out just to try it, just to do something different. But I totally understand why people love maths. And like I said, this is my maths. And then in the middle here we have after later blend, which is a really great little utility module. It's 2-channel mixer. It's got 2 VCAs, but it's also got, you can also use it as attenuverters. You can even use it as both at the same time. It's got a mixer for them. It's got min, max, and a comparator for doing basic logic and blends of these. It's really just a really incredibly well thought out, and it's another one I use in close to 100% of the patches. At least one of the functions gets used, and the function as well gets used in nearly 100% of the patches. It's just that kind of a thing. Next, we have a matrix mixer. This is the AI synthesis DIY matrix mixer. My brother built it for me. He did a fantastic job. Yeah, would I trade this? I use this in, probably use it in 40 to 50% of my patches. Would I trade it? Maybe for another. I mean, I do feel like I need a matrix mixer. They're so big. That's why I opted for this one. But when you opt for a slightly smaller one, you lose some of the options. I probably wouldn't trade it, actually. It seems to be the right compromise for me of space and functionality. Okay, next we have my primary normal synth oscillator. This is an original Mark I Clavis twin waves. It's 2 oscillators in one casing, one on either side. They're essentially fully independent from each other. Obviously, there's not a complete recreation of the jacks, so you can't do everything at the same time to both sides, but I rarely find that to be a problem. This is an incredibly underrated, amazing oscillator. I use it anytime. I use it in 85% of my patches. If I'm using synthesizer tones in the patches and not trying to be clever or goofy, then it's in there generating those tones. It is an amazing package, especially for what it cost. I think it was $260, and I think that's the new ones only cost about that too, or maybe they're up to $280 or something like that. But 2 fully independent oscillators in 8 HP is just amazing, and it's, you know, it's a plates quality oscillator. Like, it does not have the same variety that plates does. I mean, I will say that. Like, if you just are comparing oscillator module or models or whatever, but I guess we can unplug these other ones in for a minute. But we can plug this one in. All right, so there's just a sine. You can alter the phase of it here of the sine, so you get some interesting effects of that. It's here. It's. I think that might have actually been a dirty sine. Here's the sine with the phase alterations. Anyway, there's its square. Or I'm sorry, saw. Yeah, that is a top-notch oscillator. It has all your basic waveforms in there, plus a few variations that you wouldn't typically see. So you have like a sine, square, saw / triangle. This is like a phase swept saw, I want to say. So it's not like a super saw, but it's a similar kind of effect. And then these are additive models, additive even, additive odd, additive all for organ-like sounds. And then you have, here's the super saw or super square, super saw. Anyway, I don't need to show you all of them. This isn't a demo of this. Point is, it's a really versatile oscillator. Would not trade it for the world. Next, we have the noise engineering. Rather, I got my noises mixed up. The noise engineering Temp Legio, and this is a drum module, but it's more importantly, it is a flexible module. So Noise Engineering has 2 platform systems out at the moment. One is the Legio platform and one is the Versio platform, and these allow you to upload new firmwares to them to do different things. So I got the drum one because I like their drum sound. With like the BIA and whatnot. I thought that was a cool module. I wanted to add a BIA, but I wasn't sure I had the space. And so I've opted to try this out. Let's see if I can just demo that real quick for you. There we go. And this is, okay, so I use this. This is one of my newer modules. I have used it a fair bit since I got it. I use it in, actually, I probably only use it in, like, let's say 30% of the patches because it's a drum module and I don't always need a drum module. But when you do, it is a cool one, and it can be a bunch of other modules, which is really why I bought it, is I wanted to get into that platform, that Versio platform, if you will. And yeah, I've been pretty happy with it. It does a nice variety of sounds. Can't complain. And you can turn it into at least 2 or 3 other things currently and potentially more later, which is what I was really excited about. Maybe we'll just let that play here. What we look at next, this is Kinks. This is one of 2 mutable modules, mutable instrument modules that I own, which is not supposed to be in any sort of way a slight against that module manufacturer. I think their stuff is great. It has just never been quite the right stuff for me. But anyway, I use this in about 40% of my patches. I would trade it for something. Actually, I don't think I would trade it for something of similar value because it's pretty cheap. But it just, for what it does, like, I don't always need what it does, but when I do, it's just so nice to have it. So I guess I would not trade that one off. Next, we have the Clavis Flex Shaper. This is a really cool wave shaper. You can control each of the segments of the wave, top to bottom. You can either set them so it'll be changed to that as it passes through, or you can change them in real time. It's kind of hard to demonstrate what it does in a quick video like this, so I think I'm just going to leave it. But it is, I use it in, 40% of my patches. I probably would trade it for something. similar value. It's very cool, but I just have not found as many ways to use it effectively. It essentially becomes like a weird distortion in every patch. And I like weird distortion, but you know, at this point I've weird distorted a bunch of things and I would swap it out for something else to try. Speaking of weird distortions, next we have Terci Ruina. Next to that, that is a noise engineering triple distortion module. There's 3 different distortion modules, 1 on each knob, and they're chained into each other so you can run them in. If you just go in here and out there, it gets all 3 distortions. It is a very cool, very cheap, unbelievably affordable distortion module. It's one of my newer modules. I use it in 60% of my patches, and I would not trade it at this point. Next, we have the carbon filter from WMD. This is my sort of bread and butter utility filter. It's my go-to filter. It's a high pass, low pass, you know, multi-mode filter, all your usual things. You can, a bunch of different outputs, a bunch of different inputs, all in 4 HP. I use it in 80% of the patches, would not trade it. Next, I have my WASP and SEM filters. We can kind of talk about them together. These are my sort of alt filters. I use them collectively in 70% of the patches. I would say I'm using one or the other. WASP is a very raspy, sputtery, angry, spitty filter, and the SEM is not. It's buttery and smooth and sweet and all the other things you want filters to be. So they make a very nice complementary pair. Honestly, I think this is one of the most common complementary pairs. This WASP filter in particular is in every Euro rack on the planet. So the SEM is frequently paired with it, or one of the other more mellower Dofer filters. But it's a pretty common configuration, I think. Collectively, yeah, like I said, they're in 70% of my patches. I would probably trade, at this point I wouldn't trade either one of them. Eventually I would not be surprised to see me swap out the SEM for something else just for variety. Not because I don't love it. But yeah, just for variety's sake. But the WASP is so unique, I have a hard time imagining getting rid of it. Next, we have the Tallinn, Tallin, from Chaos Devices, I believe how you're supposed to say that. XAOC. Anyway, this is my output VCA. This is what I use to run, you know, my voices through before they go out into the world. And I got this because you can overdrive it, and it's got distortion, and I like distortion. I like overdriving things. So yeah. At this point, I would say I use it in 80% of my patches. I would not trade it. This is, actually, I have 3 mutable instruments modules, all utility modules. I'd actually forgotten about ears, and this is the third one that I got. This is ears. It's an input module / contact mic, as you can see it making contact. I can trigger the drum. I actually don't use the contact mic for triggering stuff very often, as fun as that can be. What I do use it for is an input to bring signals from my patch bay. You see, from my patch bay into the modular. So we're using it for effect sends and things like that. It is, I use it in, I don't know, 35% of my patches. I might trade it. I have another input module, which we'll get to in just a second, actually at the very end, but I don't know if I strictly need it, although my gut tells me I need all 3 inputs that I currently have at least some of the time, so I'd be a fool to trade it. But if someone showed up right now and had like some cool novelty module in 4 HP for $100, yeah, I'd probably swap it with them just to say, hey, oh, that looks cool, let's try that out. Okay. Getting up to the top row. Here we got some spicy stuff up here. We'll start with maybe the spiciest of them all, the Rossum Panharmonium. This module is absolutely wild, but it's not the easiest thing. Right now it's just droning away with some preset snapshots that it took, but that's not even that particularly interesting. Let's take that off. Let's see if I can get this patched up real quick for you. I'll just plug the Morphagene into it. And now you can see it kind of do its thing a little bit here. Anyway, I use the Panharmonium in about 30% of my patches, but for the time being, I wouldn't trade it because it is unique. What it does is just not something I can recreate elsewhere. It has a very distinctive sound in at least some of its modes. You will, by the time, if you follow along with this patch of the week, you will definitely learn to recognize its sound in my music and in the wider world, probably. So even though I wouldn't trade it right now, I foresee trading it at some point in the future. At some point in the future, a year or two from now, this will be someone else's module. I'll have gotten my use out of it and be ready to pass it on to someone else. But right now, it is super cool. I love doing wild stuff with it. Expect to see a lot of patches that really feature it. Okay, I mentioned that I would probably trade my Disting because I had another Disting, and that is this guy right here. This is the Disting EX. Alpha, Super Disting, what, I don't know, it's got like 7. I just call it the Disting EX. It's 2 Distings jammed into one, but it's also even more than that. I use this in 95% of my patches probably. I would not trade it. It's just too flexible. It can act as 2 of these Distings. So 2 of these, completely independent. Even actually more powerful. It has algorithms that this actually cannot play that count as single algorithms on this that you can play 2 of. It's the new firmware update. It can play up to 4 braids at the same time. Yada yada yada. It's just too much of a Swiss Army knife. Little fiddly for sure, but a fantastic module and one I would not trade. If my eyes were better, I would have very few reservations with it, but. As it is, it's still just a fantastic module. Next to it, we've got another screen module. This is the OC, Ornament and Crime, Micro Ornament and Crime. I use this in 85% of my patches. I would not trade it. This one is running the Hemispheres software, so each side is independent, and they can run various little applets. Like right now, it's got a shift register on one side and a comparator on the other. But I can change that, and I can use this to, oops. There we go. Try some of these different modes here. Envelope follower, gate delay. I mean, there's just, most of them are CV. It's mostly a CV generator is what it is. So look, there you go. There's an ADSR. So if I need another envelope, there's the world's easiest to use, ADSR. You just click to change segments. Easy peasy. Yep. I would not trade that. It's just too much functionality and too little space for me to want. I can't imagine what I would replace it with that would do the same. Speaking of modulation, though, this next one is an unusual faceplate for a module that's actually probably more familiar. You're looking at it right now, and you have no idea what you're looking at. But this is a Triple Sloth from Big T Music Limited. The Lucky Cat was a limited edition when I bought it, but it is now. You can go buy one yourself, which I am not salty about at all. It's a beautiful faceplate. Everyone who wants one should have one. I would not ever say you should not have one. But this is these are 3 chaotic modulators. I use this in, I believe, 100% of my patches at this point. I don't know that I ever make a patch that isn't using some modulation from this. Would I trade it? I would not trade it for an arm and a leg. It's literally, I wouldn't trade it for 3 times its value, much less its face value. It's my most important modulator by far. Next, we have a little bank of VCAs, dope for VCA, a quad VCA plus mixer. I use that in 15% of my patches, and I would trade it in a heartbeat. It's probably going to either get demoted to one of the secondary cases, or the secondary case, I should say, or get traded out for something. Again, probably something similar, but just something that's a little more suited to my needs now. When I got that, it was the thing, and now it is not the thing. Next, we have Desmodus Versio. This is the other noise engineering platform that I mentioned. And this is currently, the Desmodus model is a reverb. It's a very cool sounding reverb. Let's see if we can get some, maybe we can run the Benjolin into this, and then this into here. There we go. Anyway, I use this currently in 60% of my patches. I mean, if it's got reverb, this is usually where the reverb is coming from at this point. And I would not trade it. If anything, I might just swap it out for a different firmware. But yeah, I would not trade the actual module. Like I said, I wanted to get into the platforms as much as anything, so no, I wouldn't trade this. Nearly finally here, before we just switch over to some straight utility, is the FX-Aid XL. This is just this end-of-chain effects for the most part. You can customize banks. I use it in 75% of my patches probably. Used to be close to 100 until I got the Desmodus. But now sometimes I do reverbs from it, vice versa. And yeah, I would not trade it for something of similar or lesser value. It just gets used too often. Finally, we have my output section. It's a 4MS Listen 4 and Listen IO just to get signals in and out. Not much to say here. I wouldn't trade these just because they're doing the job, and I haven't found anything else that seems like it would do the job in the same amount of space. They get used in literally 100% of the patches because this is how the signals get out. Okay, let's go to the skiff. Here's the skiff. Dun, dun, dun. Starting on the left here, we have a planar 2. This is a joystick controller. It's got some VCAs up top. I use this in 65% of my patches, and I would not trade it. Links, next, just a pair of basically mults next to that is what we have. Links has a couple different mixers, and it's precision adder and stuff. But yep, these are just straight utility. I mean, would I trade them? Sure, I would trade them for some different mults in a different configuration, maybe, but they're just generic and unremarkable, and they do the great job though. They do what they're supposed to do. This is a Pittsburgh, I think it's called the Multi 2 or something like that. It doesn't matter. Mixed mult. It doesn't matter because it's long out of production. You can't. Very difficult to find and not really worth seeking out because it's just a very generic 3-channel mixer / attenuator with some unbuffered mults on the bottom. This has 3 buffered mults. It's got a precision mixer, and then it's got a little a precision adder here, which is also a mixer / mult. And then this is a 3-to-1 mixer with the step down. Like I said, you know what those are. This is a second Ornament and Crime. And this one is running the original firmware. It's a little more esoteric. I basically use this as a Turing machine. Would I trade it? I would probably trade it for a Turing machine, in all honesty, if someone wanted to swap me a Turing machine for it, since it's just essentially dedicated to that. And I could always switch my other Ornament and Crime over to the original firmware if I actually needed it to do some of the other things it does. I got a bunch of blanks here. This is where the O control rests. And then finally, got a light strip controller here. This is kind of a ribbon controller of sorts for Euro rack. I use it in maybe 40% of my patches, and I wouldn't trade it. It's brand new. It's like the very last module I actually bought. Maybe the second to last module I actually bought, something like that. And yeah, it's just pure utility. Nothing too exciting. Okay, now on to the semi-modular. We have Mini Brute 2 S. I bought this actually right after I got into modular with the intent of using its sequencer to sequence the modular, which is something I've maybe done twice. But I did really end up kind of falling in love with the Mini Brute itself. I probably will, I use it in maybe 10% of my patches when I'm not just using it for its own stuff. But it is kind of handy every once in a while to be able to use an oscillator from it to beef up something in the modular proper, or vice versa, to add one of the modular oscillators or, a filter or an effect or something to beef that up. Coma Field Kit FX. This is actually the very first piece of modular, semi-modular gear I got. I use it in maybe 20-25% of my patches. And apart from the fact that it is my spring reverb driver, I would trade it, but the fact that it is my spring reverb driver makes it very difficult for me to trade. It's also a great PT2399 delay, which I don't use all the time, but when you need that flavor of delay, you need that flavor of delay. So yeah, I wouldn't trade it unless it was something for something that did spring reverb as well. Overall, I'm pretty happy with my entire setup, modular setup, and I'm not looking to upgrade any of it at the moment. So, yep, that's basically it. That's the modular. Here's the control skiff. Here's the O control. I guess that's one thing worth noting. You'll note that it fits exactly in the space that the blanks take up. That is by design, so that I can use this like this. Oh, I also have, I guess I should do these too, 2 custom controllers. This is a gate controller with can be either gates or triggers. That's what the switches are for. Momentary triggers or held gates. These allow you to adjust 2 of the outputs between like 0 and the 5 volts. And yeah, this is a little trigger box. My brother built it for me. I put some stickers on it because I do that. And yeah, I use it in 40% of my patches. I wouldn't trade it because unless someone wanted to give me something stupid for it. I mean, I think it would cost my brother about $60 to build. If he wanted to give me something worth $200, I'd trade it to you maybe. I could get him to build me another one. And then this is a CV generator. It's a contact mic, I believe is what it is. It's called a wobble box, as you can squeeze it, shake it, whatever, and it'll generate CV. I haven't actually had a chance to try it out. Got it for Christmas just a couple days ago. But that is it. That's the end of my collection. I hope you found something of interest here. It wasn't too incoherent and obnoxious. And yeah, look forward to patching with you in the coming year. And you can leave me comments here if you have patches that you want to see, or if you have questions. I'm happy to answer them. I can do follow videos. Maybe you want to know how I integrate it with the non-modular stuff, or maybe you just want to know if I can use the Panharmonium to make it sound like angels are crying or something like that. So yeah, just let me know what you want to see, and I'll see if I can make that real. Peace.